Thursday comes. Thursday comes. Thursday began a very, very powerful and different transition also in the last moments of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And of course, the Monday, Thursday and Monday. Nothing happens in his life with coincidence. And he, as you all know, used to fast every Thursday and every Monday. On that Thursday, during his illness, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, he continued in his most beautiful, spiritual, splendid bravery, continued to lead Salah. Salah. The last Salah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was on Thursday night, the Maghrib Salah. For the last surah he recited in the Quran, in Salah, the most beloved act to Allah and to His Rasul was Al-Mursalat. Wal-Mursalati urfa. Those that are sent, the angels. By the time of Isha, he could not move. And when he could not move, it is like 10 men together could not move. He could not move. And he lost consciousness. He woke up for a moment, and the first thing he said, Asalla an-nas? Did people perform their salah? Aisha, our mother, in whose presence he died, she said, no, Ya Rasulullah, they are still waiting for you. They have hope. Then he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, bring me al-Magharoui, this big vessel with water, cool fresh water. He entered inside of it and he refreshed himself and bathed and got out to get some strength. And as he stood up to walk to inside the masjid, he fell. Ughmi alayhi. And he lost consciousness. He wakes up a while later. The first thing he says, Asalla an-nas? Asalla an-nas? Asalla an-nas? لا يا رسول الله هم في انتظارك. He tries that again, washes and tries to get up, and he can't, and he falls thrice. Asalla an-nas. Finally, he appointed Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu to lead Salatul Isha. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq led Salatul Isha of Thursday night and the Fajr Salah of Monday, and 3 days in between. Of what is recorded of his noble sayings was this. He said, ألا لا يموت أحد منكم إلا وهو يحسن الظن بالله. Let none of you die when the time of his or her death comes, except that he or she should be in a state of high hopes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A day later, he sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam whatever has remained in his frugal house, he gave away. He freed all those who served him. He had 6 dinar left. He gave that all away. None of that was remaining. He gave everything. He had left nothing much. Aisha needed oil for the lamp, radiallahu ta'ala anha, that night. And she didn't have oil for the lamp that night. She went and borrowed some from some of the neighbors to light the lamp in the room of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. I know, my mother, your heart was illuminated by the presence of Rasulullah. The next day, a day before he passed away, he left again this wasi. Again, قاتل الله اليهود والنصارى اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم مساجد. Again, he emphasized that his grave is not to be a place of worship. Al-Islam, Al-Islam. The purity of that deen is from there. It will remain there. It will be there. It is intended to be there. وَإِنَّ الدِّينَ لَيَأْرُزُ إِلَى الْجَزِيرَةِ وفي رواية إلى المدينة وفي رواية إلى مكة والمدينة كما تأرز الحية إلى جحرها. The purity of the deen will always be there. Ultimately, in those last moments, he said, الصلاة الصلاة وما ملكت أيمانكم. الصلاة الصلاة وما ملكت أيمانكم. الصلاة الصلاة وما ملكت أيمانكم. Your Rasul leaves you these last words. الصلاة الصلاة. The summary of all his teachings was, it seemed, in this: the purity of the deen in Jazirat al-Arab in particular, and as-salah, as-salah, my brother, my sister. وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ, and those whom your right hand possesses. Monday morning, Fajr time, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu is the Imam of the believers. Suddenly, the curtain opens. From the private quarters of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, and that door opened directly into the masjid. In the front rows of the masjid, the curtain is open. He's standing at that door, seeing Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu leading his ummah in salah. The last sight from this dunya of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam was his ummah in salah. His ummah united in salah. That was the last sight of his ummah. They were so elated, so happy. قال أنس كادوا يفتتنون في صلاتهم فرحا برسول الله. Out of joy, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam now is healed. They thought he came to lead us again. No, he did not. When he looked at them, he smiled. تبسم وضحك. He smiled, and then he closed the curtain. And went back. Until duha time. His beautiful, in every way, daughter Fatima alayha salam wa radiyallahu anha came to him, and he called her and whispered a few words in her ears, and she wept. And he called her again, and he whispered a few words in her noble ears, and she smiled. Later she was to say that the first few words he whispered into my ears were, "I will die." She wept. The next words he whispered in her ears were, and he's laying in the arms of Aisha against her noble chest. And Abu Bakr and Abdul Rahman was carrying a miswak. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Aisha, who read with her eyes of her head and her eyes of her heart every move, external and internal, of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it seems, she said, I knew as he looked at Abdul Rahman that he perhaps wanted siwak. At that moment, Ya Rasulullah, she said, I told him, would you like the siwak, Ya Rasulullah? He moved his head, yes. She took it from him, and then she never forgot this to be one of her most special privileges with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قالت اختلط ريقي بريقه عند موته. My saliva mixed with his at the moment of his death. For she said to him, as the siwak was hard, she said, shall I soften it for you? He moved his head. Yes. She took it in her noble, sweet mouth and softened it. Softened it and gave it to him, and he took it in his mouth and said, moved his sweet lips. And Aisha said, he said, oh Allah, forgive me of the Most High.